back. Now, despite an increase in the national minimum wage, there still seems to be concerns that domestic workers are not being compensated fairly. Research done by the Department of Employment and Labour on the sector shows many companies don't comply with labour legislation. Workers find themselves being paid lower wages and subjected to abuse and exploitation. So on average, a domestic worker who works 8 hours daily for 20 days a month earns around 3,710 rands. Now, keep in mind travel expenses, family responsibilities, school fees and other emergencies that just tend to sneak up. Surely what domestic workers earn is not enough to ensure they can survive until the end of the month. Now, co-founder of the Izwi Domestic Workers Alliance, Maggie Mthombeni, joins me now to delve a little bit deeper into this. Maggie, thank you so much for your time this morning. I suppose the first question is, why do we still see a sector in which domestic workers are not empowered enough? Companies or even individuals who hire domestic workers are not, of course, going by laws governing domestic work.
Thank you so much, Tumelo, for your time. As you already introduced my name. Yes, as domestic workers, we still feel like we're still undermined everywhere we go with our employers, our community. Like, as we are even told, our employers are even told on how much they're supposed to pay us, which is not even a living wage. And some other workers are not being told on how much they're supposed to be paid by their employers. But as domestic workers, we are giving a limited on how much we're supposed to earn.
What do you think needs to happen at this stage to sort of, either enforce these laws, speediate the process with which that understanding between domestic workers and employers, obviously comes into fruition? At this point, what do you think needs to be done urgently?
I think the Department of Labour is supposed to have something which is going to force the employers on paying even the minimum wage is fine, because they just preach about the minimum wage, but some employers are not complying about that, and then there's nothing which is happening about them being forced to pay the minimum wage. So to us, the minimum wage is not existing at all, because it's going to be told, but it's not going to be acted.
What are some of the challenges that domestic workers face, especially in this economic times, with the little that they earn?
It's a lot, because even the Department of Labour are not forcing employers to register domestic workers for UIF and COIDA. But when you supposed to, and the other thing, for those who are being registered, they are even registered without any documentation. Sometimes they don't ask a proper document. But when you are going when we have to contribute, they're not asking proper documentation. But when you're supposed to get your money, it's when they do ask all the documentation. Well, they never ask before the time of being registered.
I want to talk about also, the injuries that some of the domestic workers, of course, face or actually experience at work. What protection do domestic workers have should they incur an injury while on duty?
They were just covered on COIDA last year, I think. They just said they're covered, but still, you still find it very difficult because, like, example, when you're on your way at work and then you get injured, the COIDA is not going to cover you. When you're outside on break time and then you get injured, the COIDA is still not going to cover you. When you're out still in the employer's property or after work, when you get injured, the COIDA is still not going to cover you, which is still, we think the government is still taking the employer side, because we're still not covered on COIDA, but we are told that we are covered, but still we find it very difficult that we are still going to be claiming COIDA.
Well, that's an issue, of course, that we hope will be resolved quite soon by the Department of Labour. But thank you so much, Maggie Mthombeni, co-founder of the Izwi Domestic Workers Alliance, for joining me and highlighting this issue. All right, more to come.